afternoon, neighbor. Thanks for joining me again here beside the river. This is the river that I was born beside. It's the St. Joe River. Hopefully, it doesn't get too noisy with all of the motorcyclists and dog walkers crawling over the island and roving through the streets. I'm not sure what today has been. It's sort of felt just sort of like another day. And I'm not always comfortable with that. But today I feel like I'm more comfortable than not. I'm not sure how far away that cyclist is, but I can still hear him or her, just revving his engine. Of all the sounds in the world, that's probably one of my least favorites. Just the revving of an engine. I mean, you're free to do it. I'm not gonna stop you. But I find it a little annoying. I'm thinking about how We're all a part of a story. And I'm thinking about how all of us are in the middle of that story. All of us are somehow writing that story. And yet there are forces at work which shape the way that we go about that story. And then I'm thinking about ideas of free will and predestination, or the idea that things are already set in motion, the ideas of choice, and whether or not we have choice. And growing up, I've leaned more into the idea that we do have choice. And today, looking back on all of those choices, sometimes I wonder how much choice I had in the matter. Sometimes it would seem that the universe is a slot machine, or a game of chance, or some sort of board game, which we roll the dice, or God rolls the dice, and we end up with all of these different things. We all end up in these different places and positions, and just roles, inevitably roles, because human culture likes to invent roles to its own weakness. Human culture invents roles in which people are subservient, and I don't know. I'm thinking about the idea of a storyteller, how way back when, and I don't know how it was way back when, maybe I'm just romanticizing it, but there are folks who tell the traditions, they tell the stories of their people, and eventually those stories, they get written down into language and into script, and then those scripts get passed down for generations and generations, and hundreds of generations later we read those scripts, and we read those tribal narratives, and we misunderstand them because we're no longer in that so direct, cohesive, face-to-face tribe. And then I think about just the scripts that were handed, the scripts that we weren't handed, the stories that we were given growing up with ideas of schooling and education, and that schooling told us what mattered the most, and other things were left by the wayside. And we've lost something in all of that, because oftentimes the stories that we were told were that the world was an unsafe place, that there was danger out there, uh, that nations were raging against nations, and it's still the same old story. And I'm sure it looked similar to a tribal community, to a hunting community, with different tribes having disputes and potentially going to war with another tribe. But it would seem to me that it's easier today to get lost in something that, for one person to have a story and then another person to have a slightly different story, or like a story that, or a lack of a story, or just, we're not all any longer in that tribe. And yet we are. This is our story. All of our stories are our story. And we're in the process of writing that story. And the more whole and healthy a life, it means that we're including each other in our stories. And that's hard. That's easy, but it's also hard. Because it would seem to me that we're hitting the wrong notes, and there's a lot of dissonance to whatever it is that we're doing down here. Think about the story that's being told at a workplace with all of its legalese, and think about the story that's being told in a corporate environment with all of the different ideas and the rules and the traditions that have been passed on for very little time. A corporate tradition looks different than a religious tradition, but there's something similar going on there. And think about the story that's being told with, I don't know, I often think about how we all drive in cars, or a lot of us, most of us. We drive around in cars down the highway at high speeds, and we don't often see the faces beneath the windshields. And the fact that more and more I've seen just the fact, like, windshields are more tinted these days than they used to be. And I guess a part of me wonders what we're hiding from. Well, all of us, are we hiding from something behind our tinted glass? And then I've also I've watched historic footage of people from like 100 years ago just walking through the town, and they don't have their cell phones, and they're not looking down or just the cell phone is an object of there's a heron flying. Um, it's a focal point of the culture that we live in, and I don't always know what to make of that, because I lost my train of thought. I got interrupted by a group of photographers, or a group that's in the process right now of taking some graduation photos. It's it's intriguing to me that there's a story taking place, and we have motive in that story, and we mean things to people within that story, and we don't often get to see that meaning unless someone tells us, like, this is what you mean to me. And sometimes the meaning is better left unsaid, and that's where faith comes in, just in the fact that we trust that we mean something to each other. And when someone breaks that trust, we get a little lost. And I'm just thinking about how so much of the world that I live in is filled with broken ideas of trust, or broken relationships, or something that's missing. And I often lean more toward the hope that things could be something better, but they're not. Things don't have to be this way. Another life is possible. And yet, the only life that we have is the one that we're living right now. The only life that I have is the one that I'm living right now. And to wish for another life is to contradict the one that you have right now, the one that I have right now. And it's strange to spend one's time wishing for something else. And yet, it would seem to me that the devices that we have, the black mirrors and the little smartphones that we shove in our pockets often, and it would seem that they're a mirror rather than a communication device, in the sense that we're looking for ourselves in the mirror, and the mirror tells us who we are. And I think about the scripture that says that the word of the Lord is like a mirror, and how the fool looks in the mirror and immediately forgets what he looks like. And yeah, it's not exactly a I don't know. Maybe not everyone sees the phone as a mirror like I do. But sometimes it would seem that there's an infinite number of selves out there hoping for credibility and hoping to be remembered. And in the process, they're forgotten by the people that they actually know and actually live with and actually spend time with. There's a thirst and a hunger to capture the moment and share it with the future, or with an audience, rather than just living in the simplicity of whatever it is that we're living right now. And I just think of the internet as sort of this library of icons and images and ideas, and in some ways it's an encyclopedia, and in other ways it's a newspaper, and in other ways it's a diary. It's semi-public. It's the public sphere, but it's also not, because there's a difference between talking to a camera and talking in front of a live audience, and there's something very impersonal about the phone, and there's also something very personal, and I don't know if I'm able to make the distinction, but having grown up with with this device, with this means of communication. It's something that I've thought about a lot, and I would much rather live in the real world than whatever this world is right now. But I think back to the storyteller and the storytellers of old, and I know that I'm doing the same thing that they have done. They've told the life that they've lived. They've spoken what they've seen and heard. And in some ways, that's the only way to move forward. It's to tell the story, so that the story can continue on. And in telling our stories, we are giving others the words to tell their own. And so I feel this fracturedness in the sense that all of us are borrowing from each other the language and the spirit. But also, where have you been? Where are the people? What's going down? What's happening? I'm gonna end it off here. It's a lovely evening. The skies are completely blue. There's a little bit of a wisp, just a blurry wisp up in the sky right in front of me. And the river is peaceful and calm. There was some rain this morning. It's not very humid compared to the humidity from the past week or so, and then the humidity that I experienced down in Tennessee and Kentucky, and the air has a nice smell to it. Just the riverbank smell of the sand and the odd smell of the water, the musky smell, the plant smell of the riverside. The sun is getting ready to go down here in a few minutes. It's still on the tippy tops of the trees. And yeah, it's a beautiful evening.